Neon Genesis Evangelion, a show that has seen much debate in the anime fandom about its symbolism, overall message, and of course what we're talking about today, whether it is good or bad. Now if you haven't seen the show yet and you're just looking for a clear yes or no answer, then do yourself a favor and go watch the show. NGE is a show, the less you know the better, and at the end of this review I'm going to obviously give it a yes. But for those who will stay and watch, let's begin and get into the nitty gritty. The show begins in 2015, where we see the world is in danger, because when is the world not in danger of being destroyed in anime? We follow a high school student named Shinji Ikari, who's been contacted by his father, Gendo, for the first time in many years. Now you may be wondering, why would his father contact him now? Well, Shinji's father needs him to pilot an Eva, otherwise known as a giant mech. Eva are humanity's final defense against giant creatures named angels that threaten the world's existence on basically a weekly basis. Now if you've never seen the show before, then you may be thinking in your head, wow, this sounds like every single other mecha anime out there. Well, dear viewer, you are oh so wrong. While NGE seems generic on its surface, in the beginning you soon start to realize that there is much more to it. Now this is where I have to be careful. NGE is a lot better when you know very little going into it. This is because the show has many twists and turns that turn this from a generic mecha show into something truly different. However, I will say this, if you've read anything about NGE online, then you will probably see references to the many religious and philosophical references in the show. Not only that, but how complicated the show and its messages are. Now I won't say that later on in the series it doesn't have some confusing moments, but for the most part you can understand what the show is trying to convey as long as you pay attention, even on your first watch. I would say the only exception to this is episode 25 and 26, which may take a couple of watchings to fully get. Now before I start rambling, we should talk a little more about the characters in the show. More specifically, I want to spend some time discussing the main character, Shinji. Shinji is an interesting one because many people seem to hate him, for lack of a better term. Generally, if you see lists of top annoying anime characters, he'll probably appear. I've even heard that some people stop watching Evangelion because of Shinji alone. Now I can understand why Shinji would aggravate people, as he is far from what's normal for this genre. The thing that people need to remember though is that this isn't meant to be a regular mecha show, if I haven't already made that apparent. It is more of a deconstruction of the mecha genre, something that you'll hear a lot of Evangelion fans say. However, even though I say that, I still have to admit that it took me some time to get used to Shinji and what they were doing with him, even knowing this going in. But still, despite this, Shinji didn't break my enjoyment of Evangelion. To the contrary, as the show went on, I started to like Shinji and some of his choices. Anyway, I feel that's enough time spent on him, as there are more interesting things to mention. The other characters in Evangelion tend to follow the theme of you never truly know them. None of them are designed to be perfect, and all of them have skeletons in their closet, which, as you could guess, start to appear the more the show goes on. But this is where I have to stop. Knowing any more than this could risk ruining the show for you, and some may say that I've said too much already. I know that this is the second anime that I've pulled this card on, but NGE it's definitely necessary for. Alright, so before we talk about the music of NGE, I need to talk about the good old argument of sub or dub. The answer here is really simple. Subs. I tried to watch the dub at first, but I honestly couldn't handle the first episode. The main reason for that being is Shinji and Misato's English voice actors and their performances. No offense to the actors, but I just couldn't personally deal with it. I might be wrong in this case though. If anything, I recommend that you give both versions a try and see which one you like better. Alright, now I can move on to the music. The majority of the music in NGE was composed by Shiro Sagisu, which is impressive considering there's 3 soundtracks with about 186 minutes worth of music. By the way, here's a fun fact. 41 minutes of that is just different versions of the ending theme, Fly Me to the Moon. I found this interesting because the ending theme was by far the song that I gave the least attention to during my first watch. I paid far more attention to Shinji and Rei's theme songs and the opening, for example. Now, that's not to say that the other songs in the show are bad, in fact, it's the opposite. It just took me to listen to it out of the show to realize it. I think that's all I have to say on the subject. In short, it's a really good soundtrack, and I recommend giving it a listen. Well, to anyone who's seen the show, you know what I'm about to complain about, so let's get it over with. The art and animation for NGE is one of the more annoying parts to talk about. The show was made back in 1995, but despite that, the animation's quite good throughout most of the show. Battle scenes are fluent, backgrounds are well drawn, characters are nicely drawn as well. However, the more controversial section is episodes 25 and 26, aka the ending episodes. Because of budgeting issues and the show being rushed at the end, the animation had to be done extremely cheaply, so all that good quality that I was talking about is thrown out the window, and we get this. I can't show too many sections of it because of course it is the ending episodes and that might get into spoiler territory, but you get the point from these couple of stills. I wouldn't let this deter you from watching the show because 1, it doesn't matter, and 2, it doesn't even affect most of the show, but sadly still I do have to knock off some points because of it, which means my grade is going to be a bit lower. Okay, I know I say this at the end of every review, but seriously, this time do not continue if you have not seen the show yet. I know some people can deal with knowing the ending of the show before they watch it, but still, go to the time on screen if you haven't seen NGE. Oh boy, one of the most controversial endings in anime, and I now fully understand why. Because of the earlier mentioned budget cuts and difficulty on the director's part, the ending was made entirely different from what was originally planned to be. This leads to episodes 25 and 26 being very anticlimactic for viewers, and also leads to much confusion on what the ending message is for those episodes. This leads to a lot of people complaining about it, but honestly, I can't complain that much. When I watched it, I honestly didn't feel like it was that out of place for Evangelion. It still fit in because, honestly, all the show is filled with symbolism like that. Although admittedly, 25 and 26 are really a lot more heavier on it, but you get the point. It still is a shame though that Evangelion ended like this. Or did it? Now usually here I would try to do a recap and be like, oh, here's my ratings for the show, but this is a bit of a different case. To those who have seen the series already, you know what I'm talking about. Because of the outrage behind episodes 25 and 26, they decided to make a new ending to it in the form of a movie, promptly named The End of Evangelion. Now, I can't exactly cover an entire movie in my ending section, so I'm going to separate it into its own review that will come out in about 2 to 3 weeks after this one. That doesn't mean I'm not going to give it a rating, though. Now, essentially how this is going to work is I'm going to give a rating now that will cover episodes 1 through 26 without the movie. After I release my next review, I will release a new rating chart including the movie's rating into it. So without further ado, my final rating for Neon Genesis Evangelion, without the End of Evangelion movie, is a 7.6 out of 10. The show isn't perfect like this, but it is a must-watch for any anime fan, and it will be on my must-watch list for years to come. I won't give a specific like, oh, this is how you should watch it. Stream it, buy it, whatever you want to do, just watch it. But with that, my time is up. Thank you for watching this review, and I will see you guys in my next review.